morning, welcome back to our shop just outside Kennesaw here in North Georgia. My name's Larry. This is part 2 of a 2-part series that we're putting together regarding preparing a set of mid-century modern dining furniture for sale. In part 1 we took care of the chairs, we fixed loose joints, we touched up the finish, all sorts of things. And then in part 2 we wound up doing a complete refinishing of the top of the table. Both those pieces are now out of here. We're working on the buffet this morning, the buffet or the server. That's what I'm leaning on. While you were gone, I got the buffet in here, I got it cleaned, I got the colors touched up just like you saw me do on the chair and on the table. And we've got it scratch covered and waxed. So the base is completely done. In just a second I'm going to flip it up on its legs and I'll show you the top, which needs just a little bit of work. I think we can get away with not refinishing this top and just doing some touch-up. So stick with us, we'll get this flipped up on its legs and I'll bring you in and show you what we're facing with the top. I've got the buffet on the hydraulic table. You can see how beautiful it is. I mean, look at these poles. Beautiful drawer construction. This is, again, a piece of white furniture, W-H-I-T-E. The lady that we bought it from said it was purchased in the 50s. I think it's stunning. But anyways, let's get up onto the top. I believe the top is a veneer of walnut. We have one fairly deep scratch here, and it's surrounded, I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you, but if you can see, it's kind of surrounded by some lighter scratches that swirl around it. And then there's some light scratches in the finish here that I think will polish off. So what my plan is I'll use some hard fill to bring this deeper scratch up to level, and then we will wet sand this with like 800 grit, and if we have to hit it with a polishing wheel, we'll hit it with a polishing wheel and we'll see how that comes out. So we'll take care of that next. There you go. I think you can see that damage a little bit more clearly. These scratches here I think are going to be too deep to sand out, so I may try to fill those as well, but we'll see how it goes. But that's really the only major issue we have on the top, and we can make that better. Perhaps not perfect without refinishing it. We can make it a whole lot better. What I'm using here is a clear hard fill stick. Since these scratches aren't down to the color layer, there's no need for the hard fill to be colored. And hopefully this will remain clear and just help us bring this surface level, which is all we really need to do. I think that's going to work. Yeah, we've got that filled up nice and smooth. All right, very good. I'm going to hit this with a little bit of 4/0 steel wool. and then we will decide how we're gonna top coat this. I believe this finish is polyurethane, but I'm gonna wet sand the surface, and then we will maybe we'll put a wiping coat of polyurethane on it and call it. But I'll make that decision as we go forward. Okay, that's 800 grit paper on my air sander. I've got the piece wrapped up so we don't get water and sanding cuttings all over it. And let's see if we can knock some of those light finish scratches down. I'm using soapy water as a lubricant. Always be careful around the edges, you can go right through very easily. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see it. There was our big damage right there. That looks real good. All of the scratches are gone, with the exception of, hopefully I can show you, there's a scuff right there, and one next to it. I'm going to just do a little bit more sanding here to see if I can get this out, and then we'll decide what to do. I've wiped the top down with naphtha, given it time to dry, and I've mixed up some wiping polyurethane, oil-based polyurethane, with a little bit of walnut stain to darken it up a little bit, and we're just putting it on a rag and wiping it on. Trying to keep the strokes nice and long and even. And if I see a scratch, I want to make sure I get some polyurethane down inside it. To keep it from refracting light and showing. But I think this is going to work out just great. Well, hey, a little bit of a change in plans here. I applied the first coat of wipe-on polyurethane, and as it started to dry, it started to streak pretty badly. So I rubbed it down with some steel wool. I got it smooth, and then I laid on a coat of polyurethane over top of that, and it just went all to hell. We had some crawling, a little bit of fisheye going on, and as I was working it and getting it to dry, there were inclusions everywhere. Little bits of dust had fallen out of the air because polyurethane stays open. Dry times, I think, on the oil base is what, 2 to 4 hours, something like that. The stuff just falls out of the air and into the finish, and we can't have that. So what I did is I took all the polyurethane off. It was all fairly well still wet. I used naphtha and a rag and naphtha and some steel wool, and I got all the polyurethane off. And I put a very, very light glaze coat on the top to get it to where the color I want, and I've let that dry for about 2 hours. So what I've decided to do, rather than going with polyurethane, is to go with a lacquer top coat. Now, lacquer and polyurethane don't always get along, so what I'll do is I'll shoot a seal coat of shellac, yeah, it's actually called seal coat, it's a de-wax shellac, on that. When it dries, and it'll dry in 5 minutes, but we'll let it set for half hour, I'll shoot a coat of lacquer on this satin lacquer, and we should be all set. You know, sometimes things just don't go as planned, whether or not there was contamination on the table or on the buffet top, or there just wasn't enough adhesion between the coat I was trying to put on and the top, so it just kind of went its own way. In other words, the forces of it pulling apart by its own surface tension weren't overcome by the adhesive forces, like if this had been sanded to bare wood, it would have held tight. Regardless, that's what happens. So sometimes when you do these things, they don't work out exactly like you planned. Just know your materials, know how they react, know what else you can do, and all will be well. So we're going to get on to that Plan B fix, and that's what happened. And the seal coat's on. It's just about dry already, but what it's going to do again is to form a barrier to the lacquer. It'll separate the lacquer and the polyurethane. The lacquer will bond to it, and it will bond to the polyurethane. Everything that I've done really on this project, all the touch-ups and the glazing and stuff, are things you saw me do in part one. That's why I haven't brought you along for them now. I'm trying just to focus on things that are different. The way that we're handling this polyurethane top, this is new to the channel, so this is all new stuff. That's what I'm going to try to do as I fix this and also the china cabinet. That way the video doesn't go on forever. Much better. We'll leave this to dry. Our lacquer coat is set up, and as you can see, it came out just beautifully. So we were able to pull this one out of the fire. Good for us. Well, here's our buffet all done. I think she just looks beautiful. Let's take a look inside. You see, it's got these really nice, they're almost pewter pulls. I don't know, and obviously it's a modern design. It almost looks like something from the Middle East, but inside the cabinet you have 3 drawers. You know, one's a silverware drawer and there's 2 for storage. Everything works beautifully. Top drawer is divided for, I guess, silverware too. But there it is. All done. Ready for sale. Top came out great. The color match is good. I'm happy with it. Thumbs up. Okay, we'll let this sit in the shop for a day, let everything get hard, dry, and then we'll haul it back into the house and haul the china cabinet out, and that'll be the next project for this part 2. We'll bring you back. Hey, it's December 26th. Hope y'all had a great holiday. We're back at it for the last part of this restoration. We've got the 2-piece, actually 3-piece china cabinet in the shop now. You can see here, it's a full-size china cabinet, 3 doors in the bottom, 3 drawers in the top. This piece here is really magnificent when the top is set on it. It lightens it up. It also gives the owner all this flat space to use. And this basically just sits on here and comes right off. Let me bring you in and show you the top. This is the top of the cabinet here. I'll show you what it looks like. I'll show you the damage that it has that we have to fix. And then I'll show you this piece here, and then we'll get to it. And here's the top of the china cabinet. As you can see, beautiful glass doors with this pewter colored, I guess, mullions behind the glass that match the hardware. It's absolutely gorgeous. And if you come around to what would be the top of the china cabinet, I think you can see the damage that we're dealing with. We've got some nicks on top of that and some wear spots. But basically what this is water damage. It's probably a potted plant, and it looks like the water ran in this direction. If you run your hand over this, you can feel that this veneer, although it's tight and it's down, thank goodness, it's a little bit rough. We could probably fix this with a wet sanding and glaze, but since we're going to wind up having to strip the top of the other piece, we might as well strip this off just as well. Let's take a look at the other piece. This is the base of the china cabinet, and as I said, this piece here comes right off. It's basically just a frame that sets on top of the base. And here's our top. And it's really in pretty good shape with the exception of this right here. This is right square in the middle of the top. And this scratch, which is really more like a long bruise, it's dented in. Catch it with your fingernail. We got to do something with that. We've also got scratches all around it. Another scratch here, another scratch here. And then here, this looks to be goop that's on top of the finish, but in places it's eaten through. So this whole top's going to have to be restored. But the drawers are, again, all solid wood, matching hardware. It's just beautiful. And there's also pretty decent sized chip right in the front that we're going to have to take care of. So the next step for me is to mask off both pieces and get these tops stripped off. You've seen me do that 100 times. I'm not going to bring you in for that. And once we've got these tops stripped, we'll get to doing the repairs we have to do before we refinish them, and I'll bring you back for all that. So I will see you in a bit. Here's the top of that china cabinet. I moved it onto the hydraulic table. It'll be a little bit easier for me to work on it there. Well, you can see that thing is just absolutely gorgeous. The blue tape is the first layer of masking that I'm putting on. But I wanted you to have an opportunity to see that before I got to work on it. That's really, really pretty. Here's another view of the damage to the top of the china cabinet. You can see all the water issues, and then this raised grain here and more water, cloudiness from water stains. So this is definitely the right call to take this finish off. And the stripper's on, and it's starting to work, as you can see. Scraped a little bit of it off here and then reapplied it. So we'll give it about another 15 minutes to just sit on here, and we'll come out and get it off. Okay, the tops are all stripped off. As you can see, under that broken finish, we have a water stain that shows where the potted plant was and where the water drained out of it. So the top portion of the cabinet is going to have to be oxalic acid. And here's the top of the base piece, and we've got this one whack right here that we've got to fill in, and then you can see what we had called earlier, these bruises, and they're still into the wood, so we can't finish this until we get that taken care of, and I'll steam that up. There's also another one right there that's got to come up. So I'm going to sand this with 150 and get a coat of oxalic on it, and then we will start the repairs to the top of the base. And I mixed up oxalic acid and hot water. You can see that there's a little bit on the bottom. When you see that, you know that your solution is saturated. And I'll just apply it with a chip brush, soaking the whole top, and we'll let it dry and we'll see how we do. Well, I'm going to try to steam up some dents, and you know what happens when I do it. Inevitably, I fog up the camera, so I'll do the best I can, but if you guys all of a sudden feel like you're taking a shower, my fault. Here we go. That's our first victim right there. This cloth is damp. Again, don't pay any attention to the color. What we want to do is feel that this has come up. And it has. It's even. It's absolutely even. That was a deep, deep one. All right, let me turn you this way. Here's the mess that got us into this refinishing or this stripping job to start with. Let's see what we can do with these. You in the sauna yet? Look at that. A little bit low right there. Perfect right there. So let me get working on these. I'll get these all up level, and then we'll sand this a little bit more aggressively with the power sander, and we will be ready to seal it up. Okay, looks like we had some success with our steaming and sanding. Those scratches are out. That real dark one was over here by that knot, if you remember correctly. Let's get this rinsed off and see how we did. Oh yeah, very much lighter. I think we got some success there. Let me show you this so I can get on with it. But what do you think about that? And we've got the top of the china cabinet all rinsed off, and you really can't see where the stain was, but if you come in here and look real careful, you can see very faint. There it is. See it still? But that's not going to be any problem. That'll disappear under the color, so I'm happy with that. Alright, we're going to let this dry overnight. There's no sense of doing anything else on this till it dries thoroughly. This side is all done. Let me get this out of the way. This is ready to be sealed up. Tomorrow when this dries, we'll sand it, and it'll be ready to seal up. So we're making good progress. I will bring you back tomorrow. Hey, good morning. We're at it. It's before dawn. It's a rainy, cold morning out here in North Georgia. I'd take you outside and show you what it looks like, except it's pitch black outside. So we're going to work in here for a little while. You got to get this piece sanded off, and then get them both blown off, and then get them sealed up. It's going to be 2 coats of sealer, probably an hour dry time in between, and then once the sealer is dried, we'll shoot some color on, and then we'll start with lacquer. So we'll be in and out of the shop all day. With any luck, this will be the last day on this entire project. We'll get these finished up. So stick with us, we're almost done. Pardon my voice, but I am breathing through a mask, but you can see our water stain is gone. That's good news. Okay, it's time for the sometimes vexing issue of color matching. We're very close. We've used medium brown walnut, which to me has a lot of red in it. And I don't want to get this any redder. There's quite a bit of red in this, but I think if we use any more medium brown walnut on this, we're going to go too far to the red side. It does look like it needs to be darkened up just a little bit compared to the front here. What you want to look for, what I often look for, is the lightness of this. Does it match any of the tones in the stripes, or the, not the stripes, in the grain of the field? And it does, but to my eye, it still looks just a little bit light. So I think what I want to do is apply a very, very light coat of glaze to this, and we will use, I got to look at Van Dyke Brown, but Van Dyke Brown oftentimes has a little bit too much red in it itself. Maybe some raw umber, and as long as we don't go too dark on it, we shouldn't get any of that green cast that sometimes comes with the raw umber color. But we will get some additional color on this in the form of a glaze coat, and I can adjust that because the glaze is oil-based. This is completely sealed, so if there's too much glaze on there, I just take it off with a little bit of mineral spirits. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'll play around with getting the final color adjustments to this top and the other one. Once it's where I want it, I'll start shooting coats of lacquer on it. We already have one. We'll shoot 2, 3, 4 more, depending on what the piece tells us. And of course, before we start spraying the lacquer, I'll pull this this plastic back around here so we don't make a mess of what's on there. But that's the next step, so stay with us. I've got some some raw umber glaze toned down with some naphtha right here. Naphtha, of course, is an oil solvent. It's like mineral spirits, just more highly refined and more volatile. Let's see how this does. And here's a clean chip brush. I think that's going to do exactly what we want it to do. All right, let me get to work. Well, I think we made the right choice using that glaze thinned out. That color match is really, really good. And basically what I did after the glaze went on, as it was drying, is I just kept dry brushing it with my chip brush, just like so. Keep it nice and even, keep it from puddling up anywhere. And the color match is exactly what I want. I'm very, very happy. All right, let me get on to the next piece. And the top section of the china cabinet also took that glaze perfectly. So I am really, really pleased with the color match we got. Again, we used two different things. We used a toner of medium brown walnut. That gave us some brown, and it also gave us some red. And then we diluted a glaze of raw umber, which is a brown that's a little bit green rather than red. Diluted that, applied that, dry brushed it on, and we got really, which is basically a dead nuts match. And that makes me very happy. Okay, I'm going to give this about an hour to dry because I thinned it out with naphtha. The normal dry time is 2 hours. I don't think it's going to need that long. And then we will shoot a couple of coats of lacquer over top of it, and the tops will be done. Well, I think that came out real good, or very well. The color match was excellent. We've gotten now 2 coats of lacquer on that. I'll shoot 2 more on it during the course of the day. And the only thing that really remains to be done on that china cabinet is to do the color touch-up and the scratch cover and the waxing, but you've seen me do that. on the other pieces, so there's no sense of showing you any of that. So this project, as far as the work aspect of it for you, is about done. Once the china cabinet's all buttoned up and the lacquer's had a day or so to dry and get hard, we'll move it, and the next shots that I'll show you is the whole thing put back together. So for you, that's just going to be a couple seconds. For me, I think it's going to be a couple of days. But hey, I hope you enjoy it. And this is the new location of the Cobb Antique Mall on Canton Road in Marietta, and this is where these pieces are going to be shown. I'll bring you inside. This place doesn't open until first week in January. And here's the set put out for sale in my wife's booth. It's going to be a while before she gets it staged. Like I say, they're not open for another week or so, but let's take you through and we'll look at each piece. And there's the buffet. And there's our table and chairs with one of the leaves installed. The other leaf is back there. And finally, there's the china cabinet. You can see how nice our color match turned out. The refinishing we did to the tops. And look how pretty that is. Well, hey, it was a great project. I hope you learned something. An awful lot of work. From our shop just outside Kennesaw here in North Georgia. Best regards. Thanks for watching. Take good care. And remember, it's just wood, color, some shiny stuff, a whole heck of a lot of work, lots of moving, and staging it for sale. See you next video. Bye.